recording on that. Yeah, Empty Your Cup was the Bruce Lee chapter. All right.
Process, not product.
Ready?
Yep.
Recording. In strategy, your spiritual being must not be any different from normal. Both in fighting and in everyday life, you should be determined through calm. Meet the situation without tenseness, yet not recklessly. Your spirit settled, yet unbiased. Even when your spirit is calm, do not let your body relax. And when your body is relaxed, do not let your spirit slacken. Do not let your spirit be influenced by your body, or your body be influenced by your spirit. Be neither insufficiently spirited nor over-spirited. An elevated spirit is weak, and a low spirit is weak. Do not let the enemy see your spirit. Friends, this is the Formless Podcast, episode number 74, with Tyler the Superhuman and me, Dustin. And I finally learned how to count. So Ace is here.
Yeah, it seems like every time we're like, man, we get higher, and it's like as we get older, we're like, how old am I? And now we're like, wait, how many podcasts are we on now?
Yep. Well, I try to make a habit of looking all that stuff up and having all my ducks in a row and like being ready to go. But last week was just kind of a blur, and was not as prepared as I'd like to be, or as I normally think I am. But this week was a little bit of the same. So anyway, this is, I guess, part two. Part two. We're going to go through more of the Zen in the martial arts. And let's get to it.
Yeah, it was a really good and short read. I mean, these chapters 2 and 3, were really kind of what this book is about, as far as how short the chapters are.
There's no fluff.
No fluff.
It's like I like my music the same way, like short, sweet, to the point. Like, let's get it done. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. This one chapter, Empty Your Cup. Second chapter.
And that's something you like to say a lot. You like, that's a philosophy that you really grasp.
It is. It's one of those things where, you want to tell the story of the chapter, or like what happens, or would they just basically need to read it, right?
Yeah. This is like a teaser.
Okay. So give them the teaser.
Yeah. Give them the teaser. Yeah, we're gonna tease you today, folks.
Yeah. So what I like to do is, every time you achieve a level in life. So for example, I made a movie. I released it in theaters. I'm still working on another distribution plan to get it on streaming. Well, now I'm working on my next movies. Well, I as the title of this chapter is called Empty Your Cup, I empty my cup, and I'm like, okay, what was the good things and what was the bad things, and I just need to empty that I did on this film and in this industry, and I need to, it's almost like dump everything I've learned and start fresh, right? Empty your cup.
Yeah.
And you're not deleting everything.
No, and I think that's a very important point. Like, you don't just erase all of that you've learned. You're taking those tools and those experiences, but instead of forming like the basis for everything else, it's like, no, I know how to do this stuff and I'm going to use it, but I'm not going to let it cloud the new experience or the new things that I have. I can still go back to them. Like, I don't forget it, but they are more like it's not the foundation, it's more of like a guidepost.
Yeah. It's like it's like a contractor that builds this nice big house and he finishes it and then he starts over, and it's like he's taking his knowledge and his skills, what he learned on that last house, and he's redoing a whole new foundation again on this new house.
But he's not building the same house.
He's not building the same house, right?
Yeah.
You know, so that's, I've never built a house. Maybe I've built a shed, but I've never done that. But that's the best analogy I can come up with. Like, we got our black belts, right? And if we were to go and train in another art, then we would be walking into another karate school, another kung fu school, another jiu-jitsu school, whatever, and walk in, and we would already have a foundation of martial arts that we would learn because our body's already moving in a certain way, but we're now learning a whole other art.
Yeah. And I think the thing that would hinder is to be like, well, I do it this way.
Right.
I do it like this. This is how I was taught. You know, it's like, well, you're going to just cloud what you're trying to absorb or learn. This new stuff, you got to let go of some of that. It's like
and empty your cup so you can
so
fill up again.
So you can fill it back up.
You got a lot of highlights in there.
I have tons, and I've added more. So in this chapter, he talks about the first time he met Bruce Lee. And Bruce came to his house and they made an appointment. He didn't have a school. He would just come to your home, which is amazing. He'd come to your home and give you a lesson. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it says.
So the first time he met him, they're like talking about like, why do you want to train? You know, Bruce is asking like, why do you want to train? Kind of like an interview. So Joe Hyams says that he hadn't trained for a while and that he was trying to get back into it and wanted to study with him because he heard and saw that he thought he was the best. So Bruce nodded and asked me to demonstrate some of the techniques I already knew. We went out to my driveway and he watched intently as I went through the various katas or exercises from other disciplines. Then he asked me to execute some basic kicks, blocks, and punches on a bag hanging from a rafter in the garage. Then he said, "Do you realize that you will have to unlearn all that you have learned and start over again?" "No," I said. Bruce smiled and placed his hand lightly on my shoulder. "Let me tell you a story that my Sifu told me," he said. "It's about the Japanese Zen master who received a university professor who came to inquire about Zen. It was obvious to the master from the start of the conversation that the professor was not so much interested in learning about Zen as he was impressing the master with his own opinions and knowledge. The master listened patiently and finally suggested they have tea. The master poured his visitor's cup full and then kept on pouring. The professor watched the cup overflowing until he could no longer restrain himself. "The cup is overfull. No more will go in." "Like this cup," the master said, "you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" Bingo.
That's pretty profound.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly what we were just talking about. Bruce studied my face. "You understand the point?" "Yes," I said. "You want me to empty my mind of past knowledge and old habits so that I will be open to new learning." "Precisely," said Bruce. "And now we are ready to begin your first lesson." This does not mean that Bruce prevented me from applying a critical mind to his teaching. And I think this is an important part. In fact, he welcomed discussion, even argument. But when challenged too long on a point, his reply was always, "At least empty your cup and try."
That's the important part right
Yeah.
there. At least empty your cup and try. And don't come back with all your stuff from the past, you know. Come back and empty your cup and learn it as if you're learning it from the first time. Like you've never...
it's harder to do that than to say that, though.
Mhm.
Like, how many times have you had to run into the wall before you're like, oh, maybe I should try another approach? Like, I always feel like when I'm struggling with something, learning, something new, I always feel like I personally like have to just exhaust myself running into that wall, and then I'm like, okay, my way's not working, so let's attempt a new way.
Yep. No, that's really good. And I think that challenges us in our humility, because it's working on your humility at this time when he says, at least empty your cup and try.
Yeah.
That's what's kind of unspoken right here is, so empty your cup and try. And also that comes with that is the humility aspect. Like, are you willing to empty your cup and try?
Well, yeah, like why are you holding on to these things? Is it your ego, or is it, what is it? What is it? And it's like, I don't know. I have a tendency to favor things. Like, it sounds stupid, but like a pen. I'll use this pen and it'll be my favorite pen, and I'll freak out if I lose it. And it's like, it's just a writing utensil. There's millions and billions of them, and like probably trillions. What difference does it make if I use this pen versus a different pen? Who cares? I'm still going to write the same. My writing's going to not improve, right? But like, I tend to favor the first thing I like. That's my thing. That's what I get. Or if I eat something like a dinner, 3-course meal or whatever, I'll like, if I don't watch myself, I'll get into this habit of like, okay, I'm going to eat all of this first, and then I eat.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Eat your different portions. You're like, I'm gonna eat my beans, then I'm gonna eat my steak, then my salad.
If I don't think about it, like I'll like have to force myself out of that like routine or whatever. I don't know.
We've Sensei Cord talked about it. It's like we become real crystallized in our
like hardened in this path.
Yeah. And so, and when something gets hardened, it's usually immovable, right? You can't. It's not flexible.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, no, and I like how he wrote this. He talks a little bit about Bruce, and then towards the end of the chapter, he says, actually second to last paragraph, he says, "It has been more than a decade since my first lesson with Bruce, and I am now in my mid-50s." So he had that empty your cup lesson probably in his mid-40s.
Yeah.
That's already getting up there in terms of like, I mean, that's probably the right time you need to learn, okay, like empty your cup.
Yeah, I
mean, at any age, really.
Well, yeah, but I don't know, like, because I learned that probably in my 30s.
Okay.
Late 30s. And I don't know that I would have been ready to learn that. I mean, I'm still learning that. That's I think that's one of those universal lessons that I mean, how many times have you had to go back and go, okay, this isn't working. I need to try a new approach, I was actually going to read that same paragraph, but
read it.
I sometimes, he goes on, with a half century of life experience behind me, I sometimes get impatient with a new idea or technique. But when I feel impatient or act dogmatically self-assured, I remind myself the lesson Bruce taught me, and I try to empty my cup to make room for new methods and ideas. That was my first real lesson in Zen in the martial arts and its application to life, although at the time I didn't recognize it as Zen. It was merely good sense, which is what Zen really is.
So one of the definitions of Zen, which is good sense. That's what he just said right there.
And then there's always a couple of quotes at the end of the chapter, but my favorite one in this one is, when you seek it, you cannot find it.
Ooh.
Zen riddle.
That's good. No, And I think that I've always used a tool called a screwdriver, right? A screwdriver, right? A lot of us have used a screwdriver. And I always tend to think of tools, right? Like these things I've grown up with, like a screwdriver. And sometimes you kind of reevaluate that tool and you're like, what is this tool for? And it really like it allows me to empty my cup and say, okay, well, this Phillips screwdriver, this Phillips one, it's meant for a Phillips head screwdriver, and sometimes we try to really fit those things, like I have,
you're like, there's a Torx here, I'm gonna just try to get, instead of go grab the Torx.
Maybe once in a while, but you can really apply this empty your cup. It's really it like resets you back to zero. And I've used a Phillips head screwdriver, but I've turned it around and used it to bash something in, right? And what I did is I broke the screwdriver. I broke the back of it, and I was like, you know what? Maybe that worked on a hammer, but it didn't work on this one. Like, I need to rethink this and like reevaluate. And I'm like, okay, rather than getting impatient and bashing, I think it was actually a flathead, but the principle applies.
Yeah.
Bashing something in and trying to use that as a hammer
when it wasn't designed for that.
It wasn't designed for that. And I was like, okay, wait. Okay, so you've gotta hammer this thing into this other thing. Okay, just stop. Okay, this is not the tool.
Just grab a hammer.
Go grab a hammer. And so I've applied this empty your cup in that a lot of times we will, like for me, I'll just grab the nearest tool and you use it for not what it's usually for.
Not its intended purpose.
Not its intended purpose. And that's almost like been accrued. Like that happened at some point when I was a kid. Maybe I saw somebody do that and I was like, oh, that's a good idea to use that tool. And then throughout the years that happened. And then this was like recently, like I'm talking in the last like 8-9 months, I tried to bash something in and I was like, and I broke it. And I was just like, not only did I break the screwdriver, I broke the thing I was trying to bash in. It's done. I need to get a new one. It was a piece of film equipment. And so that was a real humbling experience. And I just went, okay, that didn't work. Like you said, running yourself into the wall.
Yeah.
That didn't work.
And now it's cost me money.
Now it's costing me money. And that piece of equipment was about $150.
Ouch.
A stand for a light. Yeah, it's called a C stand. I was trying to actually fix it. I bought a replacement part for it. And I was trying to hammer the replacement part into the C stand with the screwdriver. And it wasn't working. And so
with like a rubber mallet or something would have been perfect.
I was using an adjustable wrench to hit the screwdriver. I could have just taken 2 minutes to go get a rubber mallet.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, that didn't work. Next time, start over. Just start over. Use the correct tool. Mm-hmm. And that was one way that I emptied my cup. Was just being like, right, because we all do that. We all just grab another tool.
I've broken screwdrivers using them as a pry bar or chisel.
Yeah.
Or,
so you know what I'm talking about. I'm not the only one.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So that was empty your cup in motion for me.
In real world situation.
I mean, there's all these other ways you could describe that situation too, but emptying your cup was another one. And
That's perfect. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. And that's the end of that chapter.
And that's the end of that chapter.
Yeah. The next one's called Process, Not Product. He goes and meets this other martial arts master. I was 50 years old when I started the study of Hapkido with Master Han. From the beginning, the learning process was slow and often difficult for me because Hapkido requires an extremely limber body. I think that's true for all martial arts. Mm-hmm. But I just lost my spot. Extremely limber body. My body had stiffened with age, and I had back problems that threw me off balance and made every kick above the waist level painful. My learning was further complicated by the presence of much younger men who were able to do easily what required tremendous effort and concentration on my part. There were many times when I considered quitting, a fact Master Han recognized. One afternoon following my workout, Master Han invited me to have tea with him. After he had served the tea, he began, "You will never learn to do any endeavor properly, unless you are willing to give yourself time. I think you are accustomed to having everything come easily to you, but this is not the way of life or of the martial arts." Two notes on that I wrote. It's never too late to start training.
Mm-hmm.
But the downfall, and I think the downfall of many of us as Americans, like, we want to see progress. We want to see like this growth.
Like right now.
Now. And it takes time. And not only that, like, it's not a race against the person standing next to you.
No.
And that's a trap I think a lot of people fall into. The competition is with yourself. Like, can you be better than the last time you attempted this? Can you improve yourself? Can you make yourself better? Not, am I better than Tyler?
Right.
Because that's a sure sign that you were going to just disappoint yourself. If you try and compare yourself with the Joneses, you're always going to be behind somebody.
Yep.
And specifically in martial arts and training, like, you're always, if you compare yourself to somebody else, you're always going to be disappointed eventually. Like, unless you just compare yourself to, like, I don't know, the new student.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Comparison. What's that quote you always say?
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah. Because it'll just suck it out of you.
And I love the second part to this, because he has a retort for like everything. "I am patient," I said. "We're not talking about patience," Master Han said. "To be patient is to have the capacity of calm endurance. To give yourself time is to actively work toward a goal without setting a limit on how long you will work." That's a key element. Like, just do the work.
And it'll come.
Eventually, if you continue to work, it will come.
Yeah.
He had touched the core of my problem. I had given myself a set amount of time to become reasonably proficient in his style, and I was frustrating myself because I didn't seem to be achieving the goal quickly enough. When I eliminated the deadline from my mind, it was like removing a weight from my body. Within a few months, I was able to perform with the rest of the class. Equally important, I used Master Han's advice to resolve an immediate problem. I was working on a book at that time, and the writing was going slowly. That frustrated me because I had agreed to start another project in short order, and it was weighing on my mind. Now I could see that my focus was wrong. I had been doing the same thing I had done with Hapkido. I should have been concerned with the process of working on the book rather than on its completion. Once I removed the time constraint from my mind and approached the book without an arbitrary limit, I was able to dedicate myself to writing and work without anxiety. Sorry. I just was thinking about like how often you see that with people. You know, they put a time limit on something.
On themselves.
Or like, oh, by this time next year, I want to run a marathon.
They're right.
And that date does nothing but get closer and closer. And then it's like, oh, I don't feel like running today, or I don't feel like doing this. And then you get discouraged and you just give up. Instead of just like, I'm going to try and run a mile today.
Just those little incremental goals, little incremental goals.
I think like we tend to focus with this microscopic viewpoint. like I'm gonna do X, instead of like zooming out and like, okay, well, what's it take to get to X? All these little hurdles are in the way. Just knock out a couple of those.
Yeah.
You know, and then in a month you can look back and go, wow, I got a lot done. Like I accomplished all of these things and I'm that much closer to X.
Yeah. That's good. And with that, like what he says, once I removed the time constraint from my mind and approached the book without an arbitrary limit, I was able to dedicate myself to the writing and work without anxiety. And what's running underneath that too is there's that confidence that comes from doing something when it's processed, like the chapter is called Process Not Product, or I would say Process Over Reward. Right?
Yeah.
And when you do that and you have that, there's just an undercurrent of like, I've trained. Like that person that you said,
work in.
I put that work in, like that person that says, that you said, well, hey, maybe I just need to run a mile today.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now they're running a mile and a tenth the next day. Mm-hmm. Now they're running a mile and a quarter the next week, and it just adds up. And there's just an undercurrent of that subtext in their mind saying, I've worked at this, and it gives you confidence.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what he's talking about right here. That's one aspect of what he was talking about.
Yeah, I think so. I think also though, like the from the anxiety standpoint of it, like not so much of having like this anxious feeling, but this looming like thing over your head, like, oh, the deadlines
is coming
instead of and focusing on that instead of focusing on, like, you know, breaking it down. It's like when we teach something, like if you teach the whole concept, like
right up front,
it's overwhelming to some. And so like you break it down and you find, okay, well, we're going to do the first step here and we're going to work on that for a little bit till everyone gets comfortable. And then we'll move on to the next step and we'll add that. It's like, and I relate that to learning a piece of music. So if you just try and play the entire length of the song, it'll be choppy and slow because you're like reading the notes and trying to figure out where they all fit and how it all goes together. And somebody told me once, like, if you're going to learn something, break it down. And music is measured in bars. So like if you're going to learn a guitar solo, it might be 20 bars. Well, you take it 1 or 2 bars at a time, depending on the complication and like how many notes are in there. And you take that bar and you play that bar over and over again until you can do it without thinking about it. And then you move on to the next bar and you add bars 1 and 2 together and you play those, you know, and you just keep going and doing that repetition over and over again until you can knock them out, until it's
one big fluid piece of music.
Mm-hmm. And it's like when
I'm not a musician, so this is like Greek to me.
But like, okay, as an actor, memorizing your lines.
Yep. Yeah.
You don't take the whole script and like try and commit it to memory You do it like a paragraph at a time, or a page at a time, or a line at a time, and you go over it, and you, while you're memorizing that, you go over like, okay, how would I say this? How was that inflection? How is, you know, what is the motive, or what is the process, and all of those things. Am I going to grab the pen and click it while I talk, you know, smoke the cigar, or drink the coffee, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, so you're working multiple things, but you're trying to get that line. Ultimately, the line is trying to be memorized, you know.
That's a good analogy.
Like, okay, the big kick for blue belts to learn, back kick.
That's a tough one.
And so you break it down into steps: spin, C, kick. And you practice that over and over again. And it even, like, I've made students say it as they're doing it to get all of those steps together and get them coherent and get them working together and get the coordination and all the other stuff. Sometimes you just have to step back and break it down. You know?
Yeah, and it makes and that's the process. That's the process when you're breaking it down.
You know, it's so, I feel hypocritical talking like this though, because like, how many things in your own life are you like, if I just listened to my own advice, I'd be so much better at?
Sometimes we just gotta take our own advice, like
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like you know one of our podcasts. I don't know, on our 20-something podcast or 30-something, and I did that solo podcast, walk through the door.
Yeah.
Just walk through the door, and sometimes I catch myself being like, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that, and I hear my own advice, and I'm like, I hear Tyler going, walk through that door, and I just have to walk through that door.
Listen to yourself. Yeah.
And that's my past self. Like,
yeah.
I should really learn to listen.
Maybe it was maybe it was your subconscious, you know, giving you that advice for you.
That's a good observation.
That's funny. No, I mean, you know, we're human. We all make mistakes. We all do these things. But the idea, at least in my personal reflection, is to like, these are observations I have about me, and like, we're not alone.
No.
Right. No man is an island, and we all have these human struggles. We all have these human things where we're like, that was dumb. Why did we do that? You know, a friend of mine, he said, to err is human. To continue to err or to repeat the same mistake is dumb. It was more colorful than that, but I'll keep it PG for that. But thanks, Trevor. And then one last quote here. For the uncontrolled, there is no wisdom, nor for the uncontrolled is there power of concentration. And for him, without concentration, there is no peace. And for the unpeaceful, how can there be happiness? Bhagavad Gita. And that's it there for those two chapters. I think, unless you want to go, we can do another one. I think I have more highlighted.
No, I haven't reread the third chapter.
Okay.
So that will be for next week.
Okay.
But yeah.
No,
it's in their quick reads and just real.
There's a lot in there. As you said in the last episode, it's dense.
It's dense, meaning thick.
Yeah. There's a lot of value there. But you know, some of the best stuff is simple. It's simple. It doesn't have to have a lot of words. You know, I as a kid, did you ever have to read like Ernest Hemingway?
I don't think so. We had to read a lot of stuff, but I don't think
so. In high school, my freshman year in high school, we had to read The Old Man and the Sea.
Okay.
Ernest Hemingway was like, you know, was a very famous author, very prolific. Many people consider him to be one of the greatest authors, or at least American novelists. And I never understood it. I was like, he's writing at like a third grade level. It's just all very simple words, you know. There's not a lot of
it's not very fluffy.
There's not a lot of fluff.
There's not a lot
of fancy words in it. It's cut. It's like right there on the page. There's not a lot of well, when I was a freshman, I thought it was dumb. I'll just say it. Like, I'm like, this is dumb. It's boring. There's not a lot of fluff. There's nothing there to like. But in The Old Man and the Sea, it was one of the books I read in school while the rest of the class was reading it. You know, it was one of the, you know, you got assigned to read it, and I was like, I ain't reading that most of the time. Like Romeo and Juliet, I'm like, no, I have no desire for this. And part of it was because there was too much Old English stuff in there that I just, what the heck is he talking about? You know?
Very hard to read.
But The Old Man and the Sea was a book that I actually ended up liking a lot, and it was cool. I had a teacher that was really passionate about teaching, and he would we'd read a chapter or read a page. Sometimes we wouldn't even get past a paragraph, and he would break it down and what all of it meant, and it's right there on the page. He would say it's right here. You just have to. It's telling you everything, but you have to use your brain and think about what he means when he's reeling this fish in. It's about this old man who goes out in a rowboat, and I want to say he's in Cuba, and he goes out and he catches this massive bluefin tuna or a marlin, and all of the younger fishermen have motorboats, and they're bagging on him and just telling him to retire and go get drunk, old man, and all of this stuff, and he goes out and he goes into a part of the ocean where nobody else is, and he's debating on whether or not he should give up and all this stuff, and he ends up and they all have all of this fancy equipment, and he has a line with a hook and some bait, and I think it's just a line that he reels in by hand.
Ooh.
And he catches this massive fish, and it's about the fight with the man and the fish, and he's reeling it in, and at one point the fish takes off, and it's the rope's running through his hands, and it's cutting his hands all up, and all of this stuff transpires, and then he finally has this epic battle with the fish. He finally beats it, brings it up to the boat, and it's too big to fit in the boat with him. So he lashes the fish to his boat, and then he's coming back in, and sharks and stuff are trying to eat the fish, and he's got to fight the sharks off. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But
I don't remember reading that one.
But in it's it's not a very big book. It's pretty small. But in the whole thing, it's just simply stated, and there's not a lot of
$5 words.
That's the one I was looking for. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of $5 words. They're all about 50 cents or a quarter a piece. Yeah. But it kind of I hearken back to this because there's not a whole lot of $5 words in here. It's pretty simple. I could probably give this to Tom. I don't know that he would understand all the concepts, but my 9-year-old could read this, and he might have trouble with some of the names, but I have trouble with the names.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the things in life that are good are simply stated.
Very simply stated. That's why I've noticed that people who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, they just have a simple way of stating things in life that it's just blah blah blah, and it's and it just hits in a different way where it's just boiled down to its essence. They're just get this done,
I've got a lot of time.
Yeah.
It's funny. I my little guy Tom, he will not spare your feelings. My dad took him fishing one time, right? They just went to Anderson River Park. They're fishing, and they're having a good time. And it's my dad and him. There are only two people at the park. And my dad was telling me this story later. And this bus came in, and it had a whole bunch of handicapped people, and they were all fishing. And my dad and Tom were standing this far apart, and my dad said this special needs lady walked in, and I'm right in between them. They're all standing shoulder to shoulder, kind of, right? And this lady starts talking, and she's talking to everyone. My dad, Tom, anybody around, just talking. And my dad said the only time she would stop talking is when she would take a breath, and then just spew words out, right? And Tom, he put up with it for a little bit, but then he's hey, he was probably about 5 or 6. He goes, "Hey, lady, can you stop?"
And he wasn't being rude.
No, it was just I got something to say, you know, and it's just like point, blunt, to the point, like, here, got it. And I liken older generations and younger generations are very much the same, and life is like a circle. We start out and we're all pretty blunt, and then as we grow up and learn manners, like we spare each other feelings, and then there's a certain point in life where we just get over ourselves and we're like, here's how it is.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say it and worry about the consequences later.
Yeah, those societal mannerisms,
Those
we
norms,
learned. Yeah. And Tom just didn't learn those yet.
No. But
that's funny.
Yeah. I
But
still,
he just had a simple way of saying it.
Yeah, and
You still.
I still remind him of that sometimes, like because he's at this age where he's like gotta talk a lot and like tell everybody everything, and I'm like, hey Tom, can you just stop? And he gets mad.
He laughs.
No, he gets mad.
Oh, he gets mad.
Yeah, it's good times. It's good times. Well, what do you think?
I think I'm good. I think we
Think
covered
we're good?
it.
Yeah, right on. So next week we got a little bit of a change. You're gonna go on a trip. You're gonna go hunting.
Got a hunting trip.
Okay, no problem.
Process over product.
There we go.
Not worried about tagging out. Just going out and being out there.
Finding your roots.
Finding my roots. Carrying a rifle. Feeling like I'm back in the military.
All right, good deal. We're gonna try and do a live YouTube. Yes, YouTube. We'll do another live event where we can be in the chat. Tyler will be absent from this one, but I'll be there, and probably one or two or three of my kids. And then still got to work on the website, but we're going to do a contest to get a copy of this book for free. Well, for the price of a purchase of some swag. But we'll work on some details with that this week and get that going. But yeah, I think that's a good point. We'll call it good here, folks. Thank you very much for listening. Hope you had fun with this. If you didn't, come back next week and we'll try it again. Also, if you have questions, comments, want to reach out and just say hey, you can email us at theformlesspod@gmail.com. Our Facebook group is called The Formless Pod. It's a public, open group. Anybody can join. We're all there. That's where we post updates. And then we're on Instagram as well, The Formless Pod. I post there every day. Usually it's just a picture of my alarm clock at 4 a.m. But stop by and say hi.
Don't walk around naked. Buy some swag.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.